Welcome, everybody. It's so great to be here with you for our weekly astrological weather. My name's Amanda Walsh. I'm the founder of Astrology Hub, and I am here with Predictive, Astrologer, and Ortelee, and we're here to talk about the weekly weather. So, Anne, last week you gave us on the intensity scale, you gave us an off the charts. Like, you couldn't even put it on the scale of 1 to 10. I'd love to hear from all of you. Was that your experience? And then tell us about what we have coming up. Let's start with the scale.
This way, the scale's coming in a little, but it's still off the charts a little bit because Pluto stopped. He stopped on the 4th, and he's now turning direct, and he has to go 5 days till he's done. And at the end of the 5 days, Mars squares Pluto. So we've got till the 9th, 10th. It's not going to be as intense as last week, but the stories that kind of popped last week, that really dramatized last week, we're going to go to the next part of them. And more importantly, what do we want to do about it? So for many people, to your point, we were talking before we came on, it's like you're watching a scary movie and the music just changed. And you know that, and if you've ever watched a movie without the sound, like I periodically, somebody will call and I'll have like a dance video on or something, I'll mute it and they keep moving, but it changes with the music off.
Oh yeah, it's probably kind of comical to watch it without the music.
Yeah. No, the music, of course, it's a porous energy. It comes in, it's Neptune, so it penetrates our bodies and it shifts our emotions and it changes things. So when the scary music comes, you kind of go like this. So I have a friend who he's older now, but when he was 5, Dickens' Christmas Carol, right? Madison Square Garden has a huge production every year, not this year, obviously, but with a scary house that when the ghosts come to visit Scrooge, the house starts to go and the smoke comes out and the music changes. And he was 4 and he went to that and the house started and he was like, I'm out of here. And he took off, right? And so she follows him into the lobby and there's all these kids and they're all crying. Oh. And the guard, the guy in the lobby goes, yeah, he brings the kids out every time, because suddenly the thing gets scary, right? And so, she kind of talked him back into going back in, right? And he's standing there and she couldn't get him to sit down. He's standing there like this, waiting, like just waiting. Right? And then the house starts to go again. He looks at her and goes, we are out of here. And he takes off again. Right? So this is that week.
Okay, so this is the week where the house is starting to light up and the music just shifted to scary. And
well, we had it last week was the first time.
Okay, so this is the second.
This is the one where we go, that's what's, the house is going again. We're out of here, or we and of course she follows him, right? He's her nephew. She can't let him run away. But yeah, that's the energy.
Well, Anne, what's interesting about that is we also have a choice to turn off the music.
Yes.
And just watch it, like watch it as if it's muted, which I've found to be really helpful throughout this year, is to just kind of watch it as like a play or a movie. And just in that, it's hard to be totally detached because obviously a lot of things are happening and it becomes very personal. But in those moments where I can remember to go, let me just watch this and see what's unfolding and just kind of watch the patterns or the themes. It's a very different experience.
It is. So you may want to turn the music down a little this week.
Yeah, turn the music down. Okay. Well, and what does the music do?
Or just know that, like if you listen to musical scores, a lot of times when you hear, music is a memory trigger. When you were a kid, the summer I painted the house, my father taught us, he believed in children as employees and slaves, and he had us paint the house. So we had a big farmhouse, $125 to paint the side of the house, right? That was the summer of Band on the Run. And, and I kept hearing Paul McCartney sing. Every time I hear that song, I just go, because I signed up for a really bad deal, And Stephen Colbert talked about how that was the summer that his dad and his brothers died. So he hears that song and he cries. Mm-hmm. So we know music is evocative. So this week you want to also play music that makes you happy, or play music that brings back a happy time. So Stevie Wonder was big when I was young. So You Are My Sunshine of My Life. And then I'm also John Denver Girl, you know, Annie's song. He wrote a song for me. You fill up my senses. So you want to kind of feed yourself happy stuff as you turn down the volume, because the scary stuff is going to be kind of big this week. Not as bad as last week, but big.
Well,
and it's not going to be as sad as last week.
Not as okay. So what's interesting, Anne, is there's the world music and the what's unfolding, and then there's the soundtrack of our individual lives. So what I'm hearing you say is that this would be a good time to be very conscious and intentional about what you want the soundtrack of your life, and or even if you think about the soundtrack of 2020, what is yours? And, you know, what have you taken on from the whole story, and what is actually your experience? And I think that'd be a really, really cool activity for all of us. And we've been doing it, and especially in the inner circle, we have our astrologers pick a song that goes with the lunar cycle theme. So we actually have a soundtrack for this year that will be really fun to put together, but just maybe something fun for people to do this week. So let's talk about the astrology. What do we have going?
It's not easy, but it also is moving the story forward. So that's really the key. Now, remember, last week we had 2 weeks ago, we had Saturn station to go direct, and he's back at March. This week on Sunday, we had Pluto station to go direct, and he's back in January 2nd or 3rd. So what the planets did was they brought us back to those times. They're back at those times again. And they're looking at you and you saying, remember what happened in January? Remember what happened in March? Okay, so now what do you want to do about it, right? So that's the important question that the universe is saying, because whenever it's really big changes, we get 9-10 months to figure it out. In this case, you know, when our world is kind of blowing up with Saturn, the structure, and Pluto, the transformation, and Jupiter really big, and they're all on what we call a world point. And I know people are going to write, what's a world point? 22.5 of the cardinal. That they're all at 22.5 of cardinal. Jupiter and Pluto are going to meet up there one more time on November 13th. 0 of the cardinal, 15 of the fixed, 7.5 of the mutable. And what that is it's a cardinal cross on the 90-degree dial, and those are action Jackson points. And if you have planets or points at that within 1 degree, you're going to be famous for what that planet does. So in the case of Tanya Harding, who whacked Nancy Kerrigan's knees, she had Mars on the world point. She was also a skater. So and she was known for her athletic skating, Mars, athletic, right? But then when she did the hammer to the knee, everybody went, oh yeah, she's famous for that, right? So it's a point. So in this case, Jupiter, Saturn, and Pluto all met at 22 Capricorn. And that was when Harry and Meghan quit, and we all went, wow. And that started it. And then Mars met up with Saturn, Pluto, and Jupiter in March. And that kind of really, we all shut down, you know, in the United States shut down. But that began the story. And now Mars is saying to the guys back in January and March, so what are we going to do? And he's asking us, because he's retrograde, he's asking us to revise our action plan. So what happens is he's in a square, Mars is here, with Eris, the goddess of discord. So we're going to have a little bit of a discordant time. And then the Saturn, Pluto over here. And then what happens this week is little Venus runs across, and she becomes the handle of the hammer of Thor that happens this week. So it's a pretty big handle, pretty big hammer. A couple weeks ago when the sun arced through it, the beginning of September, we had a sun hammer of Thor. Now we're having a Venus hammer of Thor. The problem is Venus does not like to be in Virgo. So she's a little cranky. She's a little crabby. And more importantly, she answers to Mars, Mercury in Scorpio. So the sun's in Libra, answers to Venus in Virgo. Venus in Virgo answers to Mercury, and Mercury is in Scorpio, approaching a retrograde. So he's going slow, he's really digging in. Mercury has 2 choices of who he wants to report to. The Mars, retrograde in Aries, or the Pluto stationing in Capricorn. So she's like, I don't care who wants to hang out with Mercury, I'm swinging that hammer. And she is, when she's in Virgo, she's very precise in how she executes the hammer swing. Whereas the sun is illuminative. He says, look at it. What do you think? Make your choice. Venus goes, now we have to pick what we love and what we don't love. Now we have to pay attention to how we're doing it. And Venus in Virgo is, I mean, I happen to like it because my hairdresser has it. I mean, my hair is wet. I took a shower right before the show, but I didn't want to say, oh yeah, Nancy, she did, Linda did this to me. But when she's in Virgo, she's very analytical and very process oriented, and she really pays attention to stuff. But she also goes, Amanda, you got this weird little hair thing going on with your hair and the yellow thing there. I don't know. Can you fix that? Because her job is to improve you, but people experience it as criticism, which is what she's doing. She's making it better. And I'm a Virgo sun, so I one time hired a Leo to paint my house. I came home, she painted it, and there was this little, and I'm like, oh, there's a crop there you missed. And she's like, what about the rest? And I'm like, what? You missed a spot there, Venus in Virgo is like, the rest is nice, but fix the spot, right? So we honor her, but we also know as she's stimulating this hammer of Thor, we're really going to feel it. So she hits Athena, she hits Jupiter, she hits Saturn, then she hits Pluto, then she hits Saturn. And as she rolls through that hammer, the same way the sun did it a few weeks ago. So she hits Jupiter on the 5th, she hits Pluto on the 9th, she hits Mars on the 9th, she hits Eris on the 10th, she hits Saturn on the 11th. So there's a hammer of Thor swinging. So you want to look at where the COVID clump is in your house, your chart, where the Mars planet is where Aries is, and then Virgo, because she's over there in Virgo and she is in the mood to be a little critical.
Okay, so are we looking at our natal chart or the transit chart?
Yeah, well, that's where the transits are falling.
Okay, so we're looking at where Saturn, Jupiter, and Pluto are.
So they're at 20, they're in 20s in Capricorn.
And then we're looking at where Mars is.
And Aries is, and he's at 24. Yeah, he's at 23, 22 now. And then we look at where Venus is, and she's at 10 as she rolls through these guys. She's between 3 and 10 as she rolls through. So that's where the action end of the hammer is. And you want to kind of go, okay, the action end is there, and go, right? Swing, go for it. Now, when the sun went through there, because I have the sun in the 7th, I had a few people write and complain about me talking about them on the podcast. So I was like, all right, I hear you. I have to be better about that. So even though I can tell a couple stories, I'm not gonna.
Darn it!
No, because I learned. I got the emails, right? Yeah. But I got an email this morning from somebody who had a hard time. She had presented recently at a conference, and she got a nasty email about it. And I went, oh, there's the hammer of Thor coming in. Mm-hmm. So I wrote a nice email back saying, yes, being supportive. Because when the hammer comes swinging through, you go, hammer, alert. And in New York, we're shutting down boroughs that, zip codes that have been badly behaved. Right. And, because our infection rate is up in some of them. So they're, the mayor wants to shut them down, and the shopkeepers are going, don't shut us down. Go get those people that are being badly behaved. So it's, it's a little more contentious. So it's a hard week. And then we also have Mars joining up with Eris, which is always a little bit of a tension, and Mars squaring Pluto. So that happens. Mars meets Eris today. And we feel the Mars buildup coming in, and he squares Pluto on the 9th. And he hits the node of fate on the 10th. So as this hammer comes along and whacks the top off the mountain, because that's what Thor's hammer used to do, he could send it to knock the top off a mountain. which, if you've ever seen those pictures in the coal country where they dig up the whole mountain and they take the coal out and leave the mountain kind of empty, hanging out there, that's the hammer of Thor. So yeah, so it's hard. It's a little harsh. And the week, of course, is right now we have a Taurus moon, then we go into Gemini, which is chatty and communicative, but it's on the nodes of fate. And then we go into Cancer, which is then the hard ones, because that little moon in Cancer is opposite all the COVID planets, and it's squaring the Eris, and it's in, you know, it's picking up the emotional energy of the hammer of Thor. So not a fun week, but not nearly as bad as last week was, because that week we had Saturn stationing and Pluto stationing, so we had the two of them kind of cooking the energy, you know. And there was a lot of stuff that happened last week in everybody's life, in the world, where we saw it and we went, wow, 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 wow. And at the end of the week, everybody just kind of sat back and rocked in their chair and went, okay now, interesting world, interesting things happening. We're figuring out. And so think about what the changes were in your life, right? I got an email from somebody last week that was a little snippy, but I also was like, all right, you know, I understand. Yeah, I haven't really done that. I need to step up. I got called out for not doing what I needed to do. Mm. And I'm like, I know, I've been really busy. I've been really tired. I've been, you know, and I can't really pull the COVID out anymore because I'm working, but I'm not, you know, when I finish the work, I go to bed, right? And instead of doing the other stuff. So I'm kind of like, you know, what are we going to do? Right. So that it understand the week has that kind of potency in it. And of course, last week there was a full moon. So as we go from the full moon down to the new moon, we're releasing. So this is a big week for releasing whatever the drama was in your life last week. And sometimes, you know, I have people that are actually having a good time with COVID. They're doing well. And in their case, they got a job offer, or they got you know, they decided to move or whatever, because it doesn't all bad. It's depending on how it lands in your chart. And maybe you watched other people have stuff happen, and you know, that you went, okay, you know, can't help you, but I can send my love, I can send my support. And that's really, you know, the best we can do right now, because everybody is in this alchemical cauldron of transformation. Mm-hmm. Like I said last week, you know, the butterfly, caterpillar into the butterfly, this is the hurricane coming through. Mm-hmm. And the crescendo energy, right? Mm-hmm. It's big, Amanda.
Big. I have so many questions. And
all right, fire away.
Okay. Well, let's go back to the beginning. Can you explain the world point again? Like,
yes.
So especially, not everybody knows what cardinal means, or fixed or mutable. Okay. So maybe just
so what the world point is, we know the season's changing, right? Everybody knows when they change. So that's the world points. That's where they start from.
So the solstices and the equinox.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. So the sun goes across Aries, that's 0 Aries. It goes up to 0 Cancer. It goes down to 0 Libra. It goes down to 0 Capricorn. So the cardinal axis, basically, the Aries, Cancer, Libra, Capricorn. Then we also have, for those of you who do magic or celebrate Celtic holidays, we also have the cross quarter days when we're halfway through. So it's Groundhog Day, May Day. I never remember what August is, but there's one there. And Samhain, I know I always say that wrong, so don't write. I always say that wrong. But
and I do too, so I'm not going to help you.
I'm like, I say it and I always get Samhain. I think Samhain. I've heard it a few times. But that cross.
Samhain. Is it
Samhain? Yeah. But it's spelled Samhain.
I know.
When I was a kid, like 6th grade, 7th grade, we had to stand up and read, and the word BOSOM. So I was a big reader, right? Read a lot of words, but I didn't always hear them said. So I worked it out. So I'm standing up reading that word in a class of boys and girls, and I go, and her bosom. And the whole class burst into laughter. And I didn't know why they laughed. But it's spelled bosom. It's spelled bosom, you know. Yes. So I honor Beltane, Candlemas, you know, I honor them, but I also, that last one, it's my Saturn's there. I just can't say it right. So those are the cross quarter days. And that's when we're at the middle of the fixed signs. So it's 15 of Taurus, 15 of Leo, 15 of Scorpio, 15 of Aquarius. And then, not to be left out, because Gemini, you know, the mutable signs want something, we divide it again, right? One more time, kind of slice, you know, now we've got a pie and we've cut it into there. We're going to cut it one more time. So then we're going to cut it 22 Capricorn, 22 Aries, 22 Libra, 22 Capricorn, Aries, Libra, Cancer. And then the opposite is Gemini, 7.5 Gemini, 7.5 Gemini, then Virgo, then Sagittarius, then Pisces. So if you have planets at those points within 1 degree, they're kind of talking in what we call a hard aspect, which means it's action oriented, but they're famous points. So you're going to have a fame around that point, whatever it is. Now, if you look at movie stars charts like Tom Hanks or somebody like that, they have a lot of planets on the world points because they're famous and we know them. But sometimes you're just famous for your one thing, you know, or you're famous for something, you know, that people know the thing, but they don't know you, right? But they know it, right? So it's an interesting thing. So when I read a chart, and it works with midpoints too, which is the combination of energies, when I look at planets like that, you know, those are the planets that kind of send something into the world, right? And make people notice it. So, you know, a lot of times I read artists and they've got, you know, they've published something or whatever, and I can say, well, the next one's going to be really big because it's going to be on the world point. People are going to really notice it.
Okay. So, all right. So, and what's happening this week with the world point?
The planets are all on the world point.
Okay, so what you would say then, if you were reading the chart of an individual and this lineup for this week was happening, would you say that something something big and fame, I mean something that would be remembered in history would be happening right now?
Yep, and also something that would be remembered in their life forever. Nobody's going to forget 2020.
Oh God.
Because the Saturn-Pluto conjunction happened on the world point. That's why all the astrologers were going crazy. It's going to be big. It's going to be big.
Right.
It's going to be big. Because it was a world point and the whole world got COVID, right? But we're all undergoing restructuring, rebuilding, and we're all having it somewhere in our chart at 22 and a half. And it's activated, and Pluto's stationing right there at 22. So he stopped there. So was there big events in the world last week? Yes.
Yes.
Depending on what you were looking at. Yeah. And were there big events in your life that took you back to January and took you back to March?
Okay. So this hammer of Thor thing, for people that are just tuning in that maybe weren't following a month or so ago when we were talking about hammer of Thor, can you tell us again what that means? Yes.
2 planets that are in a square to each other. So they're already arguing. And then they have a third planet that wields them. So it looks like this. So my elbows are the hammer swinger. So think about a hammer. You go like this. You swing it. I mean, axe, you can do an axe. Go look at the images of Thor with his hammer on the, he's been out in the movies, Thor with his big magic hammer. And in mythology, the hammer had its own agency. He could dispatch it to knock the top off a mountain, and it protected him, but it also warned him when something was coming. But more importantly, it smited things. So when it would smite something, a couple weeks ago when Sun went through there, we had talked on this show about the hammer of Thor, and on the internet, there was a bunch of pictures of a Gary Larson cartoon with God sitting there with his finger on the computer, and the key he was pressing was smite. And I was like, there we go. It's God smiting. It was really cute because it was out there. If you Google Gary Larson, God smiting, you'll see him pressing his computer button, the smite thing, And so what smiting does is it kind of knocks it off. A nicer version of it is when you play croquet and your ball goes and hits somebody else's ball. And then you put your ball next to theirs and you put your foot on your ball and you whack their ball out of the game. That's smiting, right? So it's uncontrolled on some level. but it is something for you to pay attention to. Now, where you're going to I got smited because I told a story on this podcast, right? And I'm sitting here, not going to tell any stories because I don't want anybody, I mean, the one I told before was like a long time ago. Like, no,
right. And as long as we don't have names, maybe.
Yeah, well, no, even names, because I'm always like surprised when I tell a story, and sometimes people go, "Oh, you talked about me on the podcast." So and other times, they don't want it talked about. So I'm like very careful with this Venus going through the hammer of Thor. I'm not talking about it.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and sometimes we're the ones who get smited. Sometimes we're smiting, and sometimes we're witnessing a smite. Correct. Right. Okay.
Any one of those is an option. Yes.
Okay. Now tell us how Venus flavors it. So and I know you did, but can you explain it again?
She's mean.
She's what?
She's mean in Virgo.
She's mean in Virgo.
The sun just goes, I'm going to innocently tell the story. And I did. I innocently told the story. But Venus goes, we talked about this. And you're not supposed to do this. I specifically said to you, don't say anything. So you got warned when the sun went through it. But now Venus comes through it. She goes, and that was that week around Labor Day.
Okay, so this is like, have we learned our lesson? Are we paying attention? Are we actually changing our behaviors? Not just continually to do the same things over and over again unconsciously. So if we are doing that, then we're going to learn about it. Okay. Now
we might get a phone call saying, thank you so much for not talking about it.
Right. Exactly.
We actually learned
what
happened in the beginning of September.
Okay. Got it. Now, why doesn't Venus like to be in Virgo?
Planets have certain, there's 12 signs. So planets have certain signs they like and signs they don't. And we call it, are they in their rulership, which is the most powerful? And if they're not in their rulership, opposite them, that's the sign they don't like. Because if they like this sign, they don't like that. Then there's a thing called exaltation, which is they really like it, and what they really don't like, Virgo. So the Venus is exalted in Pisces. It's a little lower than when she's in Libra or Taurus. Libra and Taurus planets. Venus loves being in Libra and Taurus. And it rules the seasons, the two most beautiful seasons of the year. It rules the relationships. It rules love. It rules everything blooming in beauty and Taurus and grace and all the muses of beauty. So Venus in Taurus doesn't like Scorpio because it's opposite Taurus. And why not? Everything dies. She goes, everything dies in Scorpio. And so we go, yeah, Venus doesn't really like being in Scorpio. She also is in Libra, which is the planet of relationships and connections. She doesn't really like being in Aries because Aries is the sign of war and fighting. And when she's in Pisces, she's exalted. She sees your soul. She sees your potential. She sees what you could be. But when she's in Virgo, she sees the reality. She sees what it really is. She sees, that's not love. You're only with him because he's got a lot of money. She's got a little bit of, she's accurate, but she's not always kind, right? Does that make sense? So we always, whenever you look at any planet that it likes to be in a sign, you think about, well, why would it not like being in the sign it's opposite?
Well, can you also ask, how could it like being in that sign? So for example, yesterday, the girls and I had a project beautify because for some reason I was like, there was like painting or, art that I really wanted to put on the wall. There were flowers that I wanted to plant out front, but it was like, no, we're going to do a project and it's all about beautification. Would that be an expression of Venus and Virgo?
Venus went into Virgo on Saturday, right? And we all went, oh my God, I have to be better. So in my case, I got yelled at about the carbohydrates with the doctor last week. So I went and cooked a lot of vegetables. I made a Vietnamese pho. I made a curried chicken dish. I made stuffed peppers. I made roasted, what are those things? Squashes. It's very good. Now I have to eat the stuff.
You're going to, Anne.
Well, no, instead of calling out and go, okay, can you deliver it?
Yes. Oh my God.
But yeah, so it was a beautification project in whatever area Venus is in your chart, wherever Virgo is in your chart, right?
Okay. So,
Yeah, so it's not a bad thing. I mean, my hairdresser, I look for people with Venus and Virgo when I hire them because I know the attention to detail is going to be gorgeous. At the same time, they're going to go, oh, well, we have to fix that. So my hairdresser is very well known for fixing when people have problems with their colors. She does a great job fixing their hair. And sometimes they don't like it. You know, they don't like what she did, but she's like, well, you know, you want me to fix it, right? And if they don't, she's like, okay, whatever. But she has that skill. So you want, you know, when you hire a craftsman, people with Virgo tend to be highly skilled craftspeople. Like you knew exactly where you wanted to hang those art, and you knew where you wanted to do stuff. So it's not a bad placement, but she's a working girl when she's in Virgo.
Okay,
Right?
so we have to be realistic about the things that we value. We have to be realistic about our environment, our situations, our routines. Again, we talked a little bit about this last week, right? The routines that are leading to the outcomes we want versus the routines that are giving us the same results that we don't want. Mm-hmm. And paying attention to those things and not being like delusional about it and trying to pretend like it's not there. Right?
Yeah, it's Maya Angelou saying to you, when they show you who they are, believe them the first time. And you go, Venus and Pisces goes, well, I think I can change them. And Maya goes, they are who they are, right? So that energy of the Venus and Virgo opposite the sun and the Venus and Pisces, but also when she's in Virgo, she goes, so Amanda, how many paintings did you want to have? Do you have all the things you need to do? Did you get the tape measure? You're going to measure? Did you notice that the garden out front needs some weeding? And oh, by the way, why don't we clean the refrigerator at the same time? Because you got two kids and one of them can clean the refrigerator while the other one's helping hang the paintings.
And were you hanging out in my house? I really wanted one of my daughters to clean the refrigerator. I was like, we need to clean this refrigerator. And you gave me vouchers. She gave me a birthday card with little vouchers of things she would do. I was like, I'm going to use that refrigerator card. I'm going to use the floor card. Oh, that's so funny. Okay. Can you give us an example of, you said the action end of the hammer of Thor. So like there's going to be a place in our lives, in our chart, where that hammer like kind of sweeps through.
Yeah.
Can you give us an example of what that might look like? Like if you have blank, it could be this kind of thing.
Well, it's a square. So we did it a couple of weeks ago where I said, you know, you got to get up off the couch, you're going to pee on it, right?
Right.
Because squares are like this. You have to take action to get something done. So the Mars is already pushing on, he's been pushing on it since the end of July. So you go back to July 25th and you look at what came in then and what knocked you off course. In my case, I had COVID. And what stopped on September 9th, that's when I started to get my energy back. And now we're going back through it till November 13th, when Mars stops a third time, and then he goes through it again one more time. So whatever you activated, whatever kicked up in your life, July 25th through September 9th, that's where the action Jackson is taking place. Because that Mars is squaring those COVID plans. He passed once through it in August. He's going back through it now. And then the third time he kicks it up and he says, are we finished here? And that starts on November 13th. And we go, okay, we're finished. We have made a decision. We've moved forward. We're ready to roll. So think back, because everybody is different. My case, it was in my second house. Saturn was in my 12th, which is providing service to my clients. It was in my second house. So when people book an appointment with me, I collect the money. So we canceled all of August. I read 40 people a week, 45 some weeks. That's 120 people I had to reschedule into my calendar, you know, and and it's already booked, right? So I'm booking January now. So I have to find those 120 people, 130 people somewhere here, but then I don't have my energy, which I normally have a great energy, right? So I'm like, oh man, I'm tired. I have to go to bed. And then I cancel the clients and we move them again. So it was, you know, just a nightmare, but it was also process, you know. So now I think I'm done because I actually have a day off next week. And I'm like, I think we booked everybody in. Good, right? So it's interesting because it's like, but I'm sure I'm not 100% done, but I'm pretty well mostly done, you know. So that's the energy. So look at what went screwy from July 25th to September 9th, and you're fixing it now. You're revising it now.
Okay.
When you get to
one
the
last question before to the 13th. So we're fixing it till November 13th. Yeah. Okay. One last question before we go to the summary, which is about the nodes of fate. So Mars square Pluto on the 9th, and then something about the nodes of fate on the 10th. And what does that mean, nodes of fate?
Mars, whenever the nodes of fate get activated, we really see stuff. So Mars right now is in Aries going backwards. So he is trining the north node, trining the south node, sextiling the north. So whenever the nodes of fate are activated by a planet, we have a choice. We have an option. It's called in the bends, right? In the bends is actually a square, but which means pick which way you want to go. So when something hits the nodes of fate, we have a choice about how we want to proceed. And the universe goes this way or that way. We get an offer, we get an option, we get you get a job offer, you get a proposal, you get I'm going to go buy a car, whatever it is. And it's wherever the nodes of fate are. Now they got activated on June 5th by the eclipse, right? And the eclipse on June 21st, which was on the world point on the cardinal axis, and then the one on the 5th of July. There were 3 this summer. So the nodes right now are in, hang on, I'm going to sneeze. They're in Sagittarius and Gemini. So Mars, of course, in Aries is going to trine the Sagittarius node, and he's going to sextile the Gemini node. And he's going to say, you have a choice. The trine will be easier to fall into because it's a trine, and Mars trines the south node. So probably on the 10th, I'll order in pasta. But until then, I'm going to eat the food I cooked this weekend. Well, no, because I know where that Mars is. It's in my house of misbehaving the instructions I'm told to do. And I'll do it for a while, but it's like,
you need a break at some point. Yeah.
Well, I need a bowl of pasta at some point.
Okay, Anne. So if it's squaring the nodes of fate, which is the Sagittarius Gemini axis.
Right. That would be right. What that is Neptune is right now squaring the nodes of fate.
Okay. So what kind of things, like what kind of themes are coming up with that?
You meet people, you take action, you have this fight with this hammer of Thor, and you go, I'm out of here. Whatever the hammer of Thor brings up is part 2, right? And you go, man, I talked to them about this in September and they're still doing it and I'm gone. Or you go, all right, I'm doing it. I'm going to buck up and do it, right? So it can show up a few ways, but it's all tied to, remember our life is this kaleidoscope that's based and seated in previous actions. So we have this thing we started, and now we have to figure out what we're going to do with it or how we're going to do it and take action towards that. That makes sense. So, yes. But whenever the nodes come, like if I'm doing a reading for someone, I'll go, oh, you're having the node, meet your moon. You're going to meet a moon person. They're very predictive because they bring in, because our life is built with our relationships to people. So with Mars going backwards, on the nodes, he's going to say, all right, I'll consider that. Or no, I'm out of here. And we don't know. I mean, it's going to be, what did we do? How did we make the choices? What's our forward motion place? Does that make sense?
Yes. So it's very karmic. I mean, there's very much like the energy that we've sowed. It's coming back to us. Again, I keep thinking of this like ricochet thing. Yeah. It's like, you get that feedback of your previous action, your previous decision, your previous thought relatively quickly.
Well, it's a very fast turnaround. Remember, Mars is on a world point. Mars, Eris, and Pluto all on the world points. So those are really in your face. So, and choices that you make about previous decisions. So it's going to be easy to slip into the South Node. It'd be a little harder to North Node Gemini make your choices or see both sides of the story, because you're going to want to slide backwards because it's easier. But you want to then go, well, I have a choice here. When it's a square to the nodes, like Neptune is to the nodes right now, you're unclear where you're going. That's why everybody's feeling so frazzled. And I mean, aside from all the other stuff going up there, but Neptune is like, I don't really know where I'm going. I'm like, right, you don't. It's a fog. Just keep moving. You know what's in front of you. Work on that. Live in the moment. Live in the now. Can't go back. Can't go forward. Be here. I'm a little overwhelmed because I'm in the fog. Yeah, I hear you. You're in the fog. You know, like validating reality for people is really helpful. And that's why we were saying play the music. Give your life a soundtrack. Give your life some song, some creative. But with Mars, he is action taking. So he's like, I thought we talked about this. And we had this conversation and you need to, because he's that kind of guy. And Venus is in Virgo and she's going, well, okay, so you did the refrigerator, but you didn't do the garden, Amanda. You know, and you're kind of like, well, the garden's for next week. You know, it's like, no. You said you were going to do the garden. Go do the garden. You know, it's that energy.
Yes.
And it's a little punitive because Venus in Virgo is, you should know what you're doing. You should know by now, you know, because she's that Venus. That's what she does. But when you buckle down and you do the work of Venus, she's like, all right, I got it. I figured it out.
Well, and we're getting closer to the end of the year. And one of the things that you've been talking about all year is this call for us to step up, to take responsibility, to be accountable for our actions. So maybe if there's things in your life that are still not the way you want them, paying attention to that seed decision, the seed thought, the seed pattern or habit in your life that's creating the same thing. And at this point, we're really, wouldn't you agree? So much of the theme of 2020 is take responsibility, the ability to respond. Take that and use it,
right,
with maturity and with discipline, and you know, with what's best for all sort of mindset.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, so, but also I do want to just add, and I'm going to be a little biased here in favor of our audience. Most of the people watching this podcast take responsibility for their actions. Sometimes they take responsibility for other people's actions.
That's true.
So in that case, you want to kind of stand back and say to those people that you fix all the time and take responsibility for, I think you need to do this yourself. And step back and give them their own agency to do it, right? Because a lot of times with the energy that's out there, people are feeling a little whiny, which is totally fine. I'm not judging whiny, but you want to kind of say to them, well, do you see how what you did caused what you have? And then now that you have that, now you have to take action. Now you understand it better, right? But now you have to take action to do something about it.
Yeah.
And this is that time, right? So.
Well, and wouldn't that be the flips? Wouldn't that be the obligation part of Saturn? The like when we're feeling obligated for someone else's life and then enabling them to stay in a state of not taking responsibility. That's actually not loving. When we don't even give them the opportunity to take responsibility for their own life, right? Because we take it. Because
we're living their life, you know, because a lot of times that happens like, well, they told me I had to do that, so I'm doing that for them. And it's like, well, you know, it is your life. You can do what you want too. No, I have to do what they want. It's like, no, you can do what you want. No, I have to do, you know, so when you're caught in someone else's agenda for what you should do, this is also a time when you can go, you know what, I just can't really do that. Or I did that already and I don't want to do it anymore. Is it okay if we shift this up a little? That was my job, but I don't want to do it now.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, you know, people with I had a therapist once who was very good. And she said, you know, people that are super responsible, it's really just learning not to be so get in there and fix it. The ones that are hard to change are the people that don't take responsibility. You know, the ones that over responsible themselves, those people, once they get it, they go, oh, I don't have to do that for you. That's your job. So like as an astrologer, when someone says to me, Anne, I need you to tell me what to do. I go, oh, you're trying to make me be your Saturn. I'm not going to be your Saturn. I'll tell you what I see, but the choice is yours. about what you want to do. When they say to me, make the decision for me, I freak out. Because I'm like, I don't want to be your Saturn. You know, like, that's your job. But I will tell you what the charts say, and then you have the consciousness that you apply in the choices you make. And trust me, if you make appropriate choices, Saturn will be nice to you. If you make inappropriate choices, Saturn will go, I thought we talked about this. Didn't we talk about this? And he will give you another opportunity to learn. And that's what we're all having, is a big opportunity to learn about how we take responsibility for our lives or not. And if we don't take responsibility, and you know, we all have a little tendency to not, like when I finish this, I have to go work on taxes, right? My least favorite, I have Saturn in Scorpio, but I have a meeting with my accountant and I need to get the stuff in, right? So you know, all right, I'm gonna go do my Saturn. Not my favorite place, but I know that that's my responsibility as a citizen of the United States. I have to pay my taxes. And, you know, again, the same therapist who did the earlier one about choice, she said, kind of think of the government as your business partner, you know, and he's, you know, you're giving him a little piece of the action, you know. And of course, Scorpio is the mob, right? You know, and it's kind of like, yeah, like I don't want to give it to you. And the mob is kind of like, no, you're going to give it to us.
Yeah.
We're going to firebomb your apartment, right?
Exactly.
So that's the energy, is we want to look at our Saturn, and again, buy the Do Your Saturn workshop and kind of go, that thing you love you're doing, that's your Saturn. That thing you kind of go, that's your Saturn too, because he's your work in the world, and parts of him we love. I love astrology. I'm not so big on taxes, you know, but okay, the job. Right. So this is really, you know, and it is a time, because there is so much going on, it actually is a good time to go and do your work about it. So you're at Saturn and Leo. So this week you did a beautification project. I made that. Leo wants to make the things beautiful. It likes roses. It likes romance. It likes flowers. It likes art. And so you made that happen. And then you cashed in a little chit from your kids, Leo, and you said, you get to clean the refrigerator.
You know, the word that keeps coming to mind as you're speaking about responsibility is a Hawaiian word, kuleana, which means both responsibility and joy. It actually means both things. And so it's so many times people will say, well, that's not my kuleana, or that is my kuleana. And it's that question of like, is this mine? Is this mine to do, or is it not? And yes, we have to do the tax thing, but you know, especially when it comes to our work in the world, or like the decisions you're making every day, it's like, is this mine to do? Is this what I'm here to contribute or not? And if it's not, then it's someone else's, and you may as well just let them have it. But yeah, I love that word, kuleana. Okay, let's do the summary. Okay. So what we have the Mars square Pluto at the end of the week. And so this is, oh gosh, but I feel like I need more information on the Mars square Pluto before we go to the summary. Tell us exactly what
Mars square Pluto is war.
Okay.
It's war. It's where you go to war. Mars Pluto is a war. Mars kills things and sends them to Pluto's realm. When they're meeting up, they're starting a war. When they're squaring, they're having a fight. So it's a pretty vicious fight, because Mars is in his favorite sign and Pluto is stopped. So they're really doing this thing, right? You know, once Pluto gets moving a little, it'll be better. But it's a whack down. It's a smack down.
And so, like, is that where we're at war with ourselves, where we're at war with each other, where we're at war with the world, where we're at war with reality, all those things?
All those things, yeah. Or where we're feeling, because the other way with the square, sometimes you can feel frustrated, where I'm feeling really frustrated that I have to do this again, but I have to. I'm feeling really annoyed that because Mars is annoyed in Aries. He's like not happy, but he's retrograde. It's like, really, I have to do this again? It's like, yeah. So back when I was teaching, I started teaching computers at lunch with the student who I talked about with the kid that jumped around at the Dickens Tale. And she had asked me to teach at the school she worked at. She was a customer originally as a computer customer. So I'm teaching, and then they said, do you want to teach a math class? I said, sure. So I'm teaching the math class, and the kids would give me back their homework or their tests, and I would give it back to them marked and then say corrected and hand it back. Now, it was a secretarial training school, right? So they would graduate and go off to get a job. And they would be, we have to do it over? I said, yeah, because when you go to work for me, I'm going to make you do it till it's right. And they would hand it in, and it would be wrong, and I'd hand it back to them again and say, do it again, it's still wrong. And I had one kid stand and yell at me, like, you're making me do it 3-4 times? I said, yeah, because you have to do it right when you're working for somebody. And if you do it wrong, they're going to make you redo it. She got furious with me, but I was like, hey, this is this is real world. It's not you just hand it in and you get a C. You hand it into your boss, because this is a secretarial training school. We're training you to go work in the world. So part of our job is, what does your boss want? They don't want wrong work, right? So that's Mars square Pluto.
Okay.
Like, do it again, fix it again. And it's a little mean.
So it might not feel that comfortable.
Yeah, not gonna be that comfortable.
But that probably was one of the best things you could have done for that young woman, because it's true. I mean, she needed to get it right.
Yeah. Well, when you work for somebody, they want you to get it right. And
right.
you can do a C job, but you're not going to get, they're not going to keep you long for a D job, And I was like, fix it. Show me that, okay, you got it wrong. Now look it up and figure out how. I don't care if you call a friend and you sit with them and you copy their homework, fix it. Do it. And they really didn't like that.
Okay.
I was the teacher. I was like, fix it again.
Yeah. Well, sometimes that's what love looks like. It doesn't always look like, oh, you're so great and you did a wonderful job, when you didn't. Yeah. Okay. So now we're having an opportunity to revise our action plan. We're looking at, this is like, we've got a lot of data. We've got a lot of feedback. We've gotten a lot of information. So it's, okay, how are we going to move our action plan forward? Correct. And we're still in the revision phase though. We're not actually doing it. We're revising it. We have an opportunity to look at what we love and what we don't love, and really like look at that realistically and continue asking these questions. Like, is this mine to do? Is this what I'm here for? Do I really love this or not? Okay. We have a big week for releasing, because we're in a waxing phase now of the moon.
Waning.
Oh, I'm sorry, waning.
Wax expands, makes the moon bigger. Wane makes it narrower.
Right. Okay. And we could be seeing other people. So we could be affected by this Venus hammer of Thor. We could also be seeing other people going through that. And like in your case, where the woman who got in trouble for something she said at the conference, you already had experience with that. So you were able to extend to her compassion. So this is an opportunity for us to take all these things that we've learned and experienced. And if other people come to us with similar things, there's a level of compassion, because we're all in this huge year of learning, like massive. And so this is a crescendo type of energy as well. So we have this conversation around the music and how it kind of gets to that build up music in a scary movie. And you're like, oh God, what's going to happen next? So we have that energy. And we talked about, taking ownership of the soundtrack of your own life. Yeah. And you can take on the soundtrack that's on the world stage or not. You can integrate it into your own. You can actually create the kind of emotional connection to the storylines that are happening that you want.
Mm-hmm. And yes, and the other part is to remember it's all about intent, right? So that's what Venus in Virgo also looks at. She looks at the intention behind it. So she can criticize the behavior because she's unhappy with it, but she also looks and says, well, what was the intent? And a lot of times she goes, well, the intent was this, and it was close, but now you have an opportunity, now that you've had feedback. And again, when, sometimes when I'm reading people that are artistic, I go, probably not a good idea to read your reviews. Because if someone says something mean to you, you're going to remember it. And a lot of times we remember the mean thing rather than all the compliments, right? And you and I did this last week. You had said, we get feedback on the show. And I'm like, yeah, I don't really look at it. And you said, well, I'll mail you some nice stuff that people said. I'm like, okay. And, but I don't like negative feedback because I hear it and I hold it, right? But I also appreciate that it's important. And I recognize, when I get it, I'm usually supposed to do something about it. But I had a friend who was getting criticism on something. And he was told to go have a meeting and take the notes, say take all the notes and listen and write it down and then say, let me think about it and I'll get back to you. And then go away and think about it. And then look at what was said and see if it had merit or not. And because everybody has a vision. So we saw it really modeled beautifully when Lin-Manuel Miranda released Hamilton. Because Hamilton's this great show and everybody loves it. It went on, I think it was on Disney, and then you got all this feedback like blah, 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 and he said all criticism is valid. And there was some pretty mean criticism, but he's like, this is my art, this is what I created, and you don't have to like it. Go create your own. All criticism is valid, but you have to decide if you want to take it in or not. And that's the other part. Like when we're living in this, so the criticism that you make is valid. It's your worldview doesn't mean it's the other person's worldview. So if they don't want to take your criticism to heart or listen to it or understand it, tough luck. Mm-hmm. Suck it up. Mm-hmm. Go do something else. If they take your criticism to heart, then you maybe had an impact and you helped shift stuff. So that's also the hammer. So if you get criticism this week, you want to kind of think about, well, what's the criticism I got? And how do I want to use it or not? Because we don't have to use it. And that painter, she didn't paint that spot. She left it.
Wow. Interesting.
So when I came home the next day, she's like, I finished, I'm gone, bye. And that spot was still there. She left the paint behind. So I painted it.
Wow. Interesting.
And that's Venus, it was my spot. It wasn't hers. She wasn't fixing it.
Right.
So that, I have been then the option, I wouldn't hire her again. Right. So, yeah.
Yes. So if we receive criticism or harsh feedback, this Venus and Virgo kind of thing, like you said about the yellow on my shirt, it's like, well, there's nothing I can do about that, right? So but there could be a golden thread for us in that criticism. And so pay attention to that, disregard, if it's surrounded with a bunch of vitriol and poison, you don't need to take that. But if there's something in there for you, take that gift.
Yeah.
And let it make you better.
Right. And then I will say to you, well, the reason I don't like the yellow is because you can't really see where your hair ends. And the yellow. Yeah.
Is that better?
Yeah. Well, yes. The blue, you can see where the hair ends. Yeah. There's a reason for the criticism, right?
Yes. I'll take it.
It's not criticism just for criticism. That's why I said, this is not what Linda normally does with my hair. This is Anne's hair wet from the shower, right? So it's understanding that when the criticism comes, like, what's it for?
Right.
Right.
Yes. And sometimes our immediate reaction is to get defensive. And so we don't actually get to know why it was there. But if we went in there, then maybe we would understand it a little bit better.
And so do what Amanda and I just did. Because I said, the yellow shirt, she's like, the yellow shirt, like, what's wrong with the yellow shirt? I'm like, you can't see where your hair ends. And it kind of blends in with the way the light's hitting you. It just looks like you got this thing growing out of your head. And now she's moved it back, and now she's her friends. Not to be mean. I shouldn't be talking. My hair's like wet, right?
I love you.
So go back in and say, like, what's wrong with my yellow shirt?
That? Yeah, why'd you say? Yeah, why'd you say that? What was behind that? What you were talking about earlier with intent.
Right.
Then find out what their intent was. Maybe their intent was just to make you even better. It's like, okay, great, I can take some of that.
Well, I was demonstrating what Venus and Virgo does. Now, okay, you guys all watched it. Sun in Libra, went to Venus in Virgo. I made a comment, went to Mercury in Scorpio, went to the Mars-Pluto square. So we get to the end, and the authority, I'm going to make Amanda be the authority. She said, like, you didn't like my yellow shirt. And I'm like, oh, Mars, let me explain what I meant by that. Let me, Mars retrograde, redo it. This is what you want to do this week, people, all over your life.
Oh, it's so good.
Makes sense? Yeah.
Yes, yes. And the Capricorn in me had to get over my initial embarrassment. It's like, oh God, that's embarrassing. But then once I got over it, then I could just ask you the question, hey, what do you mean by that? It's actually not a yellow shirt. It has stripes. So it was hitting a yellow stripe, but that's okay.
But your hair kind of blended, but that's the idea. So like when a couple of weeks ago, I don't remember what it was, I think the Republican National Convention, Melania came out in a green screen dress. You know, when you do a green screen, you can project whatever you want. So all these people went crazy projecting things under her green screen dress. So it was kind of like not a good choice, but you know, made people have a lot of fun. So that's the other part of the Venus in Virgo, is to kind of honor what the comment is, because it is meant to point out something. It doesn't have to be mean, but you can experience it as mean. And then you want to go back in once you calm down, or in her case, she waited until the end of the show. And we clarified. And I went, oh no, what I meant was, you know, because it's like this luminous thing. Your hair doesn't end. Good. I mean, look at my hair. Why am I criticizing her hair, right?
Oh my God, I love you so much. Okay, so you guys, everybody can practice.
Everybody get the dynamic. We demoed it.
Yeah, we demoed it. And I also want you to know that I've started screenshotting some of your comments, and I do share them with Anne. So thank you. Thank you for the comments. She wasn't seeing them before, and I realized all of a sudden, I was like, are you seeing what people are saying? And she's like, no, look. And I went, oh my gosh, I'm going to screen share.
Well, that's what I do, because I have a Mercury Mars square. I have my assistant screen stuff. I only look at the nice things. You know, if it's something bad that I really need to fix, she'll tell me. But basically, she's my incoming screen.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. And I can be your filter for.
You're my filter now for Astrology Hub.
Yes. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Anne. This is really, really, really helpful. And we have another big week, everybody. If you want to, like Anne brought up earlier, use the information about your particular Saturn to help you focus where you're putting your energy as you're doing, quote unquote, doing your work. You can still take advantage of the workshop that we did, that Anne did, that we featured earlier this year. It is Do Your Saturn, and it's at astrologyhub.com/Saturn. And that will give you information about she talked about my Saturn in Leo and what that makes me want to do. And so you'll find out about yourself.
And Leos always have really good hair, right? But I criticize Saturn, her hair.
Oh no.
See, well, no, that's Saturn. See, that's really work with, you know, if you really, I mean, astrology is amazing because it kind of sets us in. Yes. And I was trying to demonstrate Venus and Virgo being critical, but I actually picked her Saturn to pick on, and not in a mean way, but that's how this week goes, people. So when Venus is whacking your Jupiter and your Saturn and your Mars and your Pluto and your Eris, and you're like, go in and ask, what did they actually mean by that? Because that will help you calm down. Or
what do they mean by that, and what's here for me? What do they mean by that, and what's here for me? What's the gift? Because even if it's like coming with some bitterness, there could be something for you. So even if that's making it easier to make a decision to no longer be in that situation.
Right.
Yeah. All right. And thank you so much. Thank you everybody for being here week after week. It's incredible. I cannot believe we're already in October of 2020.
Well, we started this in March.
We did.
And I did the year ahead in January. So we're both back in Pluto too.
Yes. So thanks everybody for being here. Thanks for being a part of our community. And thank you as always for making astrology a part of your life. We'll catch you on the next episode.
Hi guys. Have a good week.